Good evening. Welcome to HAPA TV. Today we are rolling out a very new series. It's the Teen Series where we talk about teens' voices, the real and unbiased voices of our teenagers today. And tonight we have a very special guest. Her name is Ashlyn Gurupatham. Ashlyn is an advocate of teenage rights. Not just teenage rights, women's rights, and also environmental issues. She is only 14 years old, and she already serves as a youth president of the World Youth Leading Change for the Malaysian chapter, recognized as a key opinion leader in teenage and women empowerment, as well as environmental issues. And tonight, Ashlyn will be talking about unplanned teenage pregnancies. And this is a very, very sensitive, stigmatized, and taboo subject in our society. Not just amongst parents and teachers, also amongst relatives, friends, and strangers. And it is also a very intense labeling for any teen to bear. Now, research has shown that an average of 18,000 teenage girls in Malaysia gets pregnant each year. Now that's 25%, or about 4,500 cases are out of wedlock pregnancies. And the data that shows that 14 in every 1,000 underage girls in Malaysia fall pregnant every year, which adds up to an average of 18,000 girls per year. Now, in comparison with the Singapore's rate, 4 pregnancies for every 1,000 underage girls, Hong Kong has about 3 out of every 1,000 underage girls. And in comparison to the world, the US stands as the highest, with 57 per 1,000 teenagers aged between 15 and 19-year-olds getting pregnant. New Zealand with 51 out of every 1,000 teenagers, and England with about 47 out of 1,000 teenagers. So the numbers in Malaysia could be just the tip of the iceberg, as many cases are likely unreported. Tonight, Ashlyn will share with us her views and her insights on this topic. So hi, Ashlyn, welcome to our show. Thank you for making time to join us.
Hi.
Right. Now, how are you doing? How have you been? I'm CEO.
I'm fine, thank you. I'm enjoying not having to go to school.
Well, yes, that's true, isn't it? Yeah. Most of the teenagers are getting so used to studying online, but now they say, look, how can we continue studying online, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Now, before we start talking about this topic, can you share with us, how did you start getting into these empowerment initiatives, especially in the areas of teen empowerment and also environmental issues?
Well, teen empowerment started because obviously I'm a teenager, and at school, we're not allowed to discuss things like politics, and I think that sort of our parents and our teachers and just adults' ways of sort of keeping us in this box where we don't know what's going on, which is ridiculous, because the moment we leave school, that's when we have to start voting and we start making actual decisions that affect the world around us. And basically, I want to be able to inform teenagers about things that people are sort of sheltering them from, and also give them confidence that I've noticed that pretty much everyone every teenager I've ever met lacks.
Right. And so what about environmental issues? I know you're also very passionate about environmental issues. How did you get involved in that?
Well, I scuba dive, and that's a huge passion of mine. I love everything about nature and the ocean and animals, and it's heartbreaking to see what's going on with them now with forest fires and pollution and climate change. And I just want to be able to um, make a change and help the environment, because we live on this earth and we don't really have a backup planet or anything that we can just escape to. This is our home, this is our planet, and we have to find a way to save it before it's too late.
Absolutely, absolutely, Ashlyn. And have you okay, let me just ask you this. Have you always been an outspoken person? As far as you can remember.
No, like to the people that know me, I'm obviously very opinionated. But if you asked any of my teachers, I'm quiet and shy, and I take a ridiculously long time before I befriend people.
Right.
But that's just personal life. If I'm like, it's difficult for me to like make friends with people or like make a lot of noise like most teenagers for absolutely no reason. But if you tell me to stand up on a stage and give a speech, I'm completely confident in my ability to do so, and and I'm and there's just like no filter with me when it comes to those things.
Wow. Yeah, that's the part, right? That's the part that we always feel that, the teens' voices are always kept under control, isn't it? It is not by parents, it's by teachers. You're given a rule book of what you can say and what you can't say. And there's so much, like you say, to share and listen out to what the teenagers have to say. And that's why we created this platform, because we want to hear what teenagers really have to say about things. And I'm so glad to have you, on our first show. Right. So,
Thank you.
and okay, so before we get into today's topic, which is really a very sensitive and very stigmatized and taboo topic, but it's so absolutely important to talk about. Can you just share with us a little bit about some of the projects that you have been doing and involved in? Like, example, I heard you're involved in this project Aware in Redang. Can you just tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, so in Redang Island, once a year they have sponsors and people, and the dive center, they sort of organize this thing where you're put into groups and dive off and you go to this island and you help clean it up, or you dive to the bottom of the ocean and you sort of kill these crown of thorn starfish that are eating away at the corals and things. So, just to try and help the ocean there, which is incredibly beautiful. So I took part last year, and it was really tiring. I slept through most of it, but I think I made a very small difference, because there was a lot of people there and it was amazing. And if it wasn't for coronavirus, I would be there again.
Oh, how lovely. So, were there any teenagers who were involved in that project?
No, I think I was the only teenager there.
Right, right. And did your father have a part to play in getting you so passionate and involved in environmental issues?
No, I was always passionate about that. My favorite book when I was a kid was like 100 facts about the oceans and things like that. So I was the one that got him into environment and stuff.
I see. That's good. Okay, we shall do one session with your father and say what did your teenager get you involved in, right? Instead of the other way around. Okay, what about this other project that you've done, which is Save Kiara Hills project? What is that about?
Well, we a bunch of people basically woke up at 6 in the morning and went to Kiara Hill to just to pick up all the trash and stuff. So we get like bin bags and we just pick everything up and put it in.
Right. Okay, those were the two projects that you were involved in terms of environmental issues, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and I also heard that you. I mean, I was there as well to witness it. Maybe you can share with our audience. You were invited to be one of the speakers at the Mrs. Malaysia World Gala Night last year, where you spoke about unplanned teenage pregnancies to an audience of about 1,000 people. So tell us, why did you particularly pick that topic to talk about at a Mrs. Malaysia World event?
Well, you know that people in Malaysia were all really conservative and we don't like to talk about these things. So
Mhm.
I basically just thought, what's the most taboo thing that I could possibly speak about that would like make people the most uncomfortable? So
Mm.
teenage pregnancy, just anything to do with sex in general.
Right. And why did you want to select a topic that would be uncomfortable?
Well, because like you said, you talked about the statistics around the world and in Malaysia, and these are things that no one knows about and no one speaks about, especially to teenagers, which is crazy because this is what's affecting us. And that was also the year that my class finally learned about biology and um, sort of sex because we learned about how babies were made, but we didn't, and it was very technical, technical and scientific terms.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't actually find out anything about sex, the actual thing. And I found out that people act that people here actually think that STDs aren't actually sexually transmitted diseases. They think it's a sickness or something ridiculous like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you
Um,
think, you think that the perhaps the education part of this topic is not given to the teenagers as much as it should, or
yes,
as much knowledge as it should.
we're basically just ignoring it and pretending it's not happening because it's an ugly truth that no one wants to face.
Mm. Right, true. Wow. Okay. Now, now you also attended one of the first Women and Youth Empowerment Forum that part of HAPA Academy organized. That was also late last year, and you spoke about the women that you admired, right? So,
Mhm.
what do you have to say about that particular topic that you picked to talk about at the Women and Youth Empowerment event?
Well, since Malaysia it's a very male-dominated society, so I just wanted to be able to speak about these women that I admire and that are so amazing and that really fought for change and make a difference. And I aspire to have just a fraction of the bravery that they have, and I wanted to hopefully inspire people that didn't know about them because I think that they're amazing and and their contributions to society and humanity should really be acknowledged.
Right. That was lovely. That was a lovely speech, lovely talk you had at the Women Empowerment
Thank
Forum.
you.
Right. So, as we all know, to the audience who are tuning in, that Ashlyn is also appointed as the youth president of the Malaysian chapter of World Youth Leading Change platform. So you participated in a forum with all the youth at this event maybe a couple of months ago. Am I right?
Yeah.
And what's actually the purpose of getting all the teenagers and the youth together to do a forum?
Pardon, sorry, I couldn't hear that.
What was the purpose of this particular platform in getting all the teenagers together to talk about certain topics or selected topics?
Well, they picked a lot of these amazing teenagers and children from around the world to share their stories and stuff, which I thought was incredible because a lot of us we don't really have the opportunity to travel and things, especially during the MCO. So it was I think it was great because it put a lot of people from different countries that are going through what you are, but in different ways, and it's eye-opening. And I think that was the purpose of that, just to put you in touch with people that you might otherwise not know. And
Right, right. I mean, that was also one of a very good initiative. I'm really glad to see there are more and more platforms coming up for youth to participate and to voice out. I think that's absolutely important. Yeah, and this is very good because it's on an international platform. So very, very proud of you, Ashlyn, for being the youth president for that particular initiative.
thank you.
Okay. Right. So now let's talk about this very taboo topic, this really taboo subject, right?
Yeah, my favorite.
Unplanned teenage pregnancies. So, what are your thoughts about this issue?
Well, like I said, it's an ugly truth no one wants to talk about, and we're ignoring it. And it's really something that people need to be informed about. Teenagers, children, adults, men and women in general. We need to discuss it and start talking about it.
Right. So, do you think, and how do you think we can help to create more awareness about this particular topic?
Well, that's the great thing about social media, isn't it? You put your thoughts and ideas out there, and people listen and things, but that doesn't work too well unless you have a huge following. So, what I think really needs to be done is teachers need to talk about it in school, uh, because nowadays parents, they're really busy. They don't have the time for kids, and they don't want to talk about it, and it is something that school has to discuss, because that's where children grow, it's where they learn, and it's where they form opinions about stuff. So banning things like politics or pregnancy or anything about sex in general, it's just not something you can do, especially to people whose minds are growing and developing and
Yeah.
things. So if
What age do you think, Ashlyn, that parents and teachers should start talking about this topic of sex with their children or with their students?
Well, I think that you should be able to talk about it from a very young age, because everything's already online. So if a child wanted to find it, then they would be able to find it. But it's something that by the time you're 9 years old, you should know.
Right. And coming from you, right? You're 14 years old, you're a teenager. Uh, what would you really think, in terms of sex education, in terms of from school, from parents, and also the awareness of pregnancy, for example, that can occur to a girl, to a teenage girl? What kind of education, in terms of timing, in terms of depth of knowledge, that you would expect from parents as well as from schools?
Well, I think that it should be something that you have class on, or that you should have an incredibly long discussion with your child about. It should be in depth, and should be something that you sort of discuss bit by bit, so you get more knowledge and they're not just over all at once. And it should be something that you remind them of, because teenagers and children have really short attention spans, and they forget everything you tell them within 5 minutes of you speaking to them.
Right. And do you engage in this conversation with your parents?
Mm, no, actually, because even my parents, and you know them, they talk about everything, but this isn't something we've discussed either.
Right, right. And you think that all parents should feel comfortable talking to their child about this, right?
Yeah, you should feel comfortable, but even if you don't feel comfortable, you still have to talk about it.
Right, right. Absolutely. We hope to make sure that all parents with teenagers would tune in and listen into this and say, talk to your child about teenage pregnancy, talk to your child about sex, talk to your child about things that people don't talk about, right? Which is absolutely important. Now, do you feel that the teenagers who are caught in this predicament of unwanted pregnancy are often labeled in society?
Yeah, because, well, if you're pregnant, then that automatically means that you've had sex. So if some, so if someone, especially if you're a teenager, if someone found out about that, you'd be labeled a slut or a whore, especially if you're a girl, because there's such double standards with that.
Right. So this is where it also stigmatizes it, and also I guess that's how teenagers go into the hiding, or even worse when you get baby dumping, right? Because they all
Yeah.
don't want to be labeled, and therefore it also causes a stigma to parents whose child is pregnant, because not just the teenager gets labeled, the parents get labeled too.
Mhm.
Right? So, what do you think about their mental health? I mean, the teenagers who've gotten into this predicament. How do you reckon the mental health of these particular teenagers are?
Well, it must be incredibly difficult, and especially with the decision as to whether to abort or not. But I imagine it lead to a lot of things like anxiety or depression, especially if it's done.
Right. So, how do you think we can support this? Support these teenagers who have gotten themselves into this predicament. How do you think the parents can support it, the schools can support it, or the government, or basically the society? What do you think people can do to ensure that these teenagers do not take the road to, for example, suicide or even baby dumping?
Pardon, could you repeat that again?
So, what sort of support do you think that society or parents or schools, for that matter, or government authorities that can actually offer to these teenagers who have gotten themselves into this predicament, so that we can avoid things like suicide or baby dumping?
Well, I think for one, people need to stop being so judgmental about it. Just people in general, you have to accept it, and if they made a mistake, it's their mistake, and it's not your job to constantly remind them of it or constantly just shame them for it, because you don't know what they're going through. And I think perhaps schools should offer counseling not just for this, but for depression and such. And I think just that alone, not just no bullying or just having someone to talk to, that would make a huge difference in itself. And as for dump for baby dumping, there's also things called big hatches, where you just leave the baby and it's completely anonymous, and that would save so many
Right,
lives. And so schools
right.
should make people aware of it.
Right. Are the schools at the moment, it's your school that you're going to, are schools at the moment, you think, giving enough of counseling or support for depression, or, for anxiety?
Well, I can't speak for all schools, but my school, I do think that children, especially ones with anger issues, I know one kid in my class has that, and he goes for counseling. I don't know if it helps or not, and I never been in because the teachers don't really tell us about it. You sort of hear about it from your friends, but I think it might have helped the person, because he's also like really nice, and I haven't seen anything like angry from him since I've met him.
That's good. That's good. You think the mental health area in teenagers should be addressed a little bit more? Should be, put in a little bit more attention to that area of mental health in teenagers?
Yeah, it should, because there are like ridiculous statistics about that, where a lot of teenagers and children have these problems and they don't even know about it. They just think that something's wrong with them, and that must be a horrible feeling to have.
Right, right. That's true. Absolutely. I think, there's we definitely need a lot more awareness. I think one of the things that you spoke about in terms of getting people to understand, not to label a teenager who's gotten herself into such a predicament, and what we do, how we treat them, and these are all the awareness that we need to raise in the society to have more compassion. Not that we encourage it, but then the compassion that can be offered to teenagers in this predicament, so that we would save babies rather than seeing so many baby dumping issues on the rise. So that's really sure for sure. Right. So what are the changes you want to see take place in regards to unplanned teenage pregnancies? What kind of changes do you want to see, or you wish to
So
see?
obviously, I want there to be less of these, but in I want there to be less unplanned teenage pregnancies, but in regards to it, I just want people to talk about it more. I want it to be less taboo, and I want schools to address it.
Right. And what if you were elected as the president of this particular movement or initiative, right? To promote the awareness of unplanned teenage pregnancies, so that we can reduce the teenage pregnancies numbers, but at the same time to also save babies and also to put in a lot more awareness. What would be the steps that you would take as the president of this particular movement?
Well, for one, I'd probably use social media and Instagram, Twitter and things like that, because that's where the largest teenage and that because that's where like most teenagers spend their time on, just looking at pictures and things. So I think that using social media to your benefit would really be the thing you'd have to use to inform teenagers about these things. And I'd probably want people to speak about it in schools, because like sometimes during assemblies you'd have teachers invite people to speak to the entire grade or to the entire school about these, and I think that's really educational and informative, and that's probably something you should take.
Mhm. Right, right. And what about in terms of, let's say, what kind of road shows would you organize? For example, if you had a chance to organize some road shows where you can create awareness of unplanned teenage pregnancies, what would you do?
a, a
Like
road show.
road shows, basically those that you go out and you go to different places to promote or create awareness of a particular topic. What would you do? What would come into your mind?
Okay, a road show, is that where like you just have someone speaking about it and a bunch of people just listening?
Yeah, you can do something like that, or you can go to, for example, a shopping center, and you
Hmm?
will the whole concourse, and you'll be running a week of this particular awareness campaign, and then you go to another shopping center and you run another week of the awareness campaign. So if you had that opportunity, what would you do?
Well, I'd want probably like maybe one like a panel of doctors or um psychologists or things like you did with that with the women and
Yeah.
with that women panel, probably something like that. And I imagine one with if I could teenagers who could share their experiences and things like that. And I imagine I'd probably have like a bunch of signs with really bright colors just because I could.
Right. That's good. That's good. Lovely. Okay, let's see what we can put together. Right. So basically, what do you think are the ways that we can save unwanted babies? Like if you could talk, if you were talking to teenagers right now who's listening in, who happen to be in this unfortunate predicament, that to be in this predicament of having an unwanted pregnancy and having the thoughts about, getting rid of the baby, for example, what would you say to them?
Well, I tell them that if there are things called baby hatches or baby box where people can bring babies and just abandon them anonymously, sorry, and like they wouldn't have to deal with the repercussions of someone finding out, and the baby would be found and taken care of. That there are And I'd want them to know that there are other options for them. It's not just leave the baby somewhere and let it die, or take the baby with you and face all the problems that come with it. There are options for you, and you need to be made aware of them.
It's good. And what about in terms of giving them some inspiration and motivation to go on? What would you tell them?
Pardon?
What would you tell them if you wanted to give them some inspiration and motivation to go on? And as you know, they would be already labeled, right, by people. So what would you tell them to motivate them to continue with what they want to do?
Well, for one, I'd probably tell them that all people are idiots. Am I allowed to say that here? I'm not sure.
Right? And
Yeah,
what else
and
would you tell them?
yeah, tell them that people are dumb. They shouldn't listen to them, and that you'll be okay. That this is gonna happen. It's gonna make you stronger, and just to listen to songs by Christina Aguilera a lot. Probably that's very helpful, and just to be strong, be brave, and you're an amazing person. You can make it through this, and you could probably market this for a lot of money.
Wow, that's right. Wow, fantastic. So motivational. And what would you tell her? What would you tell her parents? What would you tell their parents?
I tell their parents to be supportive, and if they're not being supportive, then they're horrible parents and should abandon a bunch of profanities.
Right. Okay. And yeah, so what about their friends? What would you tell their friends?
Okay, I tell their friends that they should be supportive. They should lend a ear, because there are things that the person will tell them that they won't tell their parents. And if they're not going to be supportive, also insert a bunch of profanities and to get out of their lives, because they don't need any more negativity than they're already gonna get.
Wow, absolutely. Ashlyn, I love that. I love that. Particular, really, really, very, very sound advice. Now, so how do you think we can reduce or even eliminate unwanted teenage pregnancies moving forward? What do you think we can do to reduce those numbers?
Well, like I said, information for
Okay.
one, and the other would probably make condoms and more accessible, and just other options that help people avoid STDs and pregnancies, like and actually allow teenagers to be able to get them, because a lot of parents won't let girls sign up for the pill because they think it promotes sexual activity, when it's just stopping them from making a mistake.
Right.
And yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's come to our teen empowerment initiative, right? What are your plans moving
My
forward to promote
well,
empowerment?
sorry, pardon.
What are your plans moving forward to promote teen empowerment?
Well, there's the World Youth Leading Change program. That's one of it. I'm planning to speak out a lot more, and hopefully reach a lot more people. And then there's Rebel, which is my company, and I'm trying to get that online right now. Put a website up, and I'm also starting a bunch of social media platforms for it. So I'm hoping to get those up and running. and hopefully be able to speak at more places and alert people about teenage pregnancies, things that have to do with the environment and things like that, and hopefully take part in more things like clean up Kiara Hill and the Clean Up the Ocean initiative in Redang.
Wow. Okay. You want to continue, right? So what's the name of your company?
Rebel Sdn Bhd.
All right. So Ashlyn has a company established called Rebel Sdn Bhd. Ashlyn is the junior CEO of that company. Would you just like to share with us a little bit about what your company does?
Well, basically, Rebel is meant to it sells T-shirts, and the profits you get from that, those go to charities. So and the T-shirts themselves, they sort of have messages that are meant to empower teenagers, give them confidence, and give them a way to express their opinions without having to say it or go through all the trouble of having to listen to people tell them that they're wrong or that they're too young to be able to think like that, or to make up, or to have sound opinions about stuff.
Right. Do you have the T-shirt on?
Yes, I have one for you.
Oh, okay. Wow. Let me have a look.
Here, sorry, can you see it?
More to your left. Wow. Okay. And the back of it?
At the back it says brave, bold, and brilliant.
Wow. Brave, bold, and brilliant.
Yeah, I thought it would be, so I fought my dad to make sure we got you this T-shirt.
Thank you so much. So you see, well, you know that's really amazing to have people wearing that T-shirt and walking around so that they have that and bold, right? Wow, Rebel, rebellious, right? We've got a big rebel here, Ashlyn here, Liang, you know, and I think a lot more and more teenagers need to speak up a lot more than they are speaking up now. And okay, so last question, Ashlyn, what kind of achievements and impact are you planning to create in the areas of teen and women empowerment? What kind of impact do you want to create?
Well, like I've said, I want people to be informed, and I'm hoping that I can inspire people to just to make this something that we talk about more. And I'm hoping that the impact or the repercussions of it will be you'll see the rates of teenage pregnancies going down, and it's not and just for it to be more widely accepted, talked about, and for there to be less of a stigma or a taboo surrounding it.
And are you going to use your company, Rebel Sdn Bhd, to do that?
Yeah, as much as I can possibly do.
And what do you want to see? Where do you want to see your company in 1 year? 1 year from now, where do you want to see your company, Rebel Sdn Bhd, as far as all the initiatives that you just mentioned? Where do you want to see it go?
Well, in a year from now, I probably want to be able to use it to speak more, and I want to have raised in money for charity, obviously, and I just want people to know about it so that they feel empowered by it. I want teenagers to be able to wear a shirt to speak their mind, things like that, without stigma again. And in a year from now, I just want it to be something that's helped people or made a difference, because if it's helped one person, then that would have been worth it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and that's what I always share with everyone who I coach or train, and to say that the impact that you want to create, as long as you can create that impact to one person, you have done really really well, because that person would do the same, and like what we call pay it forward, right? Where that person would then create that impact to another person moving forward, right? Can you give our audience details about your Facebook? What's the address? How do they visit you? What's your website?
Well, my website is called rebelforchange.co, And I'm still getting the Facebook and Instagram up and running. So when it is, you'll be the first to know. But we're still working on it. So I can't actually give out any details other than the name of the website.
Okay, great, great. I think, it is a fantastic initiative, Ashlyn. You're only 14 and you are already doing so much more than all of us adults used to do when we were 14. Yeah. And to fight for women's rights and teenage rights and especially environmental rights. I mean, you are definitely on the right platform, the right way. And I'll urge our audience who are listening in to please give your support to Ashlyn for all the initiatives. If you have any platforms out there that is looking for teenagers to speak up and to share their insights and opinions, please do get in touch with Ashlyn Gurupatham. We need more teenagers like this. We need more teens' voices like this, where they are very expressive and vocal about issues that are real. Just like what Ashley's saying, teenage pregnancy, or rather unplanned teenage pregnancies, is real, right? And what's happening is everything gets swept under the carpet, and that's why we have a very huge increase of mental health suicides as well as baby dumping. So I'd like to say thank you very much to Ashlyn for spending time with us and sharing her thoughts and views and her true voice about unplanned teenage pregnancies. So Ashlyn, before we end the show, maybe you have anything to say, last couple of words to say to our audience?
Well, if there are any teenagers out there, just remember to be confident to speak your mind, because you can make a difference. And if you say something really embarrassing that you regret later, people have short attention spans that they probably won't remember. And for any adults out there, talk to your kids. Just inform them about things that you probably don't want them to know because you still think they're too young. They're not too young, and they're going to find out in ways that are really disturbing, and you probably don't want them to find out through.
Right. Okay, that's great advice. Very sound and great advice. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching and tuning in to our very first teen series, which is the Teens Voice, Real and Unbiased with Jen Ong. And today, our guest, Ashlyn Gurupatham, shared with us about unplanned teenage pregnancies. So thank you so much, Ashlyn, and wish you all the best. We will see you again soon on our next show, and definitely a year from now to see where Rebel Sdn Bhd is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.